men and women often do, but ones that really make big impacts in life. What are the big impacts of how we think about policing and how we think about the way prosperity is spread?
All right. Can everybody hear me? Ooh.
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Okay. How's everybody doing? You can unmute yourselves for a minute until we get going.
Oh yeah, that's annoying.
Hunky dory.
Doing great.
That's good.
Take him off the leash. My door's shut.
Oh, yeah, it was all my background noise. That's good.
I have a question. This is my first time on Zoom. This is Joyce Gray.
Yep.
Does it go to mute once I stop talking?
No, you can mute yourself or I can mute you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, because it went to mute and I wasn't sure I did anything or I'm doing
Well, when
something wrong,
when you all come on, you automatically are muted, and then you can unmute yourself or I can unmute you.
Okay, and it'll get confusing if we're all unmuted.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
I'm going to mute me and I'll listen to you.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Well, it's 7 o'clock, and the people. Here we go. I don't know how to either. I'm not.
Just turn it off and just watch with me. I know you're here.
All right. I think I'm going to get the preliminary stuff out of the way for now. So we'll call the meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. And I'm going to take a roll call of the members of Economic Development. I see Carol is here. I'll call your name and you to say yes that you're here. Carol Kleeman?
I'm here.
Thank you. Linda Torres is actually here with me, so I know she's here. She says hello. And we have Maggie.
Here.
Here. Did I see somebody else from the commission? I think there's 4 of us here at the moment. Okay. can I have a motion to accept this agenda as it is written? Or the only thing on the agenda really is the presentation and public comment?
So
Moved.
All right, thank you. So I'm gonna say a few things and then I'm gonna let Sadie take over the screen and give her presentation on the results of our Durham Economic Development Survey. There will be time for questions and comments at the end. Depending on how many people we get, I think it'd be more orderly to limit the comments to 2 minutes if possible. And I think that's it. So Sadie, are you ready?
Yep, ready to go.
All right, so I'll hit the share screen.
Sure.
Okay. And so to share the entire screen, what should I do here? Is that under advanced?
I think, yeah, you have to do it because it's not letting me.
Optimize screen for share. Oh, that's for sharing video clip. I see
At
portion.
the bottom of your screen, it's green. It says share screen.
I hit that already. I'm in advanced settings right now. It says portion of screen. I thought there was also an option to share the entire screen, but I don't see it. Let's see. Files. No, we don't want that, right? Well, let me hit. Let's try that. See if that works. That's not big enough, is it?
I think you shared your screen, Janet.
What's that?
You shared your screen.
Yes, I am sharing my screen, but I just want to know how do you make it so it shares the whole screen?
It is.
Oh, see, I don't see what you guys say. All right.
It's all it says is Zoom, but you're in the right mode now.
Okay, Sadie, you ready?
Sure. Yep.
All right. You want to introduce yourself and then you can
Yeah.
get to it? Thank you.
Yep. So hi, everybody. My name is Sadie Colcord, and I am a business associate of partnerships at Advanced CT. For those of you who might not be as familiar with us, we are a statewide nonprofit in Connecticut, and we focus on providing economic development services to the state. Specifically, we are focused on recruiting businesses and retaining businesses to and within Connecticut. So one of the key partner groups that we work with to do that is towns across the state. And so for that reason, we have been working with Durham to help Economic Development Commission and the town in general figure out ways to approach economic development and think about how to start implementing some actions towards reaching Durham's economic development goals. So can I share my screen? I still can't share my screen, Janet.
So when you share it, it's going to take up the entire screen, I hope?
Yeah, but it's not letting me share it.
All right. What else do I need to do here?
If you, Sadie, ask request remote control up at the top under view options, then Janet can approve you to take
Okay,
the
yeah.
remote.
Yep. I just requested.
Okay, now you're driving.
Okay. So can everyone see my screen now, the presentation?
No.
No.
Okay, let's see.
I think Janet needs to have it as the administrator of the meeting on her screen, the presentation, but you can forward the slide deck once you have the control that I think you now have.
Okay.
Do you have that, Janet?
I can send it real quick to you, Janet, if that works.
Where am I looking? This went better when we practiced it.
I know, I'm not sure. I'm just gonna send you the deck and you can pull it up on your screen.
Should I just like do a new share or what do you think? Or stop share and then start again?
Yeah, so I just sent you the deck. If you can just pull it up on your screen, I already have control of your screen and we
I
can,
can't even see anything but the thing that says Zoom on mine.
yeah.
So
neither-
Janet, you need to exit out of full screen and then stop sharing. Find it in your email, pull it up,
Oh,
and
Jesus,
then
are
it'll
you
give
kidding
you
me?
options of all of the different screens that you have up, and you can just choose that option, the PowerPoint deck.
I have no idea how to do what you just said. I'm sorry. That's way beyond my, you sent it to me in my email.
Yep. You can just open it up.
Am I downloading?
Yeah, just, yeah, open it up on your screen and I should be able to control it.
No. Okay, I see that. That's good, right?
It looks super zoomed in to me.
All right. Now what do I do? Is that it? I'm done?
Um,
I got to do the enable. Okay, let's do that. All right, you've got control now.
no, I don't know, it's not letting me.
It says you are controlling my screen. Okay.
Does it look super zoomed into you?
What's that?
Does it look really zoomed into you? Because that's what it looks like for me.
Well,
Yeah.
what I'm seeing is everything's kind of misaligned, and all the slides are to the left. I'll get rid of that.
Janet, try minimizing your Zoom screen.
No, that didn't work.
Your Zoom screen. This is your Zoom screen.
Where's the thing?
I don't know.
Oh God.
Here,
It's your escape key on your keyboard.
I already tried that. I don't know why this is not working. All I know is that I see too much of what I don't need to see on my screen. I did that already. Oh, now they're gone.
Pull the presentation back up.
Where is it? We did practice this, guys, I swear. I don't know.
we
why.
really did and it worked.
We're
Very
not
cute
buying.
dog.
What does this thing do? Does this make it? No. Optimize share screen for full screen video clip. Would that do anything? No. What the heck?
I mean, I could always do the presentation without the slides. It's just not going to be as good.
I don't know why this is like this.
Janet, did you just unshare, just go out of sharing mode for just a second? And then most likely what you did is you clicked on, sometimes the share has you can click on boxes, whether it's the full screen or whether it's an individual window within the desktop. So most likely why it's zoomed in is because you clicked on an individual window. You have to just, when you go to the share screen, you just have to make sure you're selecting the right box that's available within the share screen settings.
All right, so this is what I'm seeing. Go back to basics. All right. Oh, I see. Okay, let's try that. Does that work? Let's try that. Bingo, I think. Does that look right? to you guys?
Yeah.
Yes.
That looks great.
Okay. I'm not sweating much.
I think I may have. All right. That's fine.
All right, so everybody else mute and.
So I'm going to request control from you again, Janet.
Oh, okay. Yep. You got it.
Okay. Okay. Is that working? Okay, looks good. Okay, great. So after a little bit of technical difficulty, thank you all for joining us tonight. As I mentioned, my name is Sadie Colford and I work for Advanced CT. And we have undertaken a project with the town of Durham. We started working with Durham in about February of this year. And so I'll just kind of give you all an overview of what we've been working on, and then we can get into the results of the survey. So we were, like I said, originally hired in February, which was right before COVID kind of took off in Connecticut and in the US. So our original project scope has changed a little bit. Our original scope was focused on doing business visitations and outreach related to economic development, a part of that being, Janet, were you changing it? Sorry. A part of that being doing a community survey, a survey of residents and businesses on their thoughts on economic development in town, and then another portion of that being convening a number of stakeholder groups around the topic of economic development. And so because those were largely focused on kind of in-person meetings, the business visitations and the stakeholder group engagement, we have decided to shift in collaboration with the town, kind of our process, because the in-person meetings right now aren't ideal. So we have kept the community survey portion of our work, and now we have shifted to doing a roadmap for economic development implementation work. So it's pretty much going to be a guide for the town to start actually implementing some recommendations that we're going to be creating, and that's going to include not just the Economic Development Commission, but elected officials, municipal staff, land use boards and commissions, pretty much the town's entire economic development team. So we will be putting that together over the next month or so, and a lot of it will be based on the results of the survey that we are going to talk about tonight. Okay, so just to give a little background on our survey methodology, whenever we do a survey at Advanced CT, we like to spend some time just getting to know the community so that we can best create survey questions and better understand what type of information the community is going to want. So we attended a public meeting, which was a joint meeting between the Board of Selectmen and the Economic Development Commission back in February, I believe, and then had some additional one-on-one conversations just to inform the creation of these questions. We worked internally with our research team to put those questions together and finalize them in collaboration with the town. And the survey was out in the field from early April through mid-May, so a little over a month. And we had 511 responses, which is an excellent response rate for a town of Durham size. And we analyzed the results and categorized some of the open-ended questions so that we could determine key trends from those responses. And like I said before, we will use these results to help guide the implementation roadmap that we're going to be creating. And just a side note that the raw survey data is available on the Economic Development Commission page of the town's website.
On the homepage, actually.
So now I'm going to kind of get into the survey results. And one of the most critical, probably the most critical piece of information that we took away from the survey that I just kind of want to start off with is that residents do want to see additional commercial development in Durham. However, they're not really looking for big box stores or chains in town. They want to see small businesses that really fit with the character of the community. And these sentiments were also reflected in the charrette that was done a few years ago for the town's POCD. So, you know, we certainly saw some overlap there, and all these results really represent a great starting point to build off of as the town is looking to start implementing some economic development activities over the next few years. So I'm just gonna go question by question through the results. So the first question that we asked in the survey is, what are Durham's economic strengths? And about 2/3 of the respondents said that Durham's central location within Connecticut and also within the Northeast is one of its key economic strengths. A little less than 1/3 said its historic town center is an economic strength. And then a little over 60% said the Durham Fair is an economic strength. And then within the other category, which also for each question that we asked that, it definitely reveals some additional kind of interesting trends. So within the other category, we saw economic strengths being Durham's small town charm, its agricultural base, its quaint, unique, and welcoming shops, the fact that it's attractive for commuters because of its location, and its engaged community. So I'll just mention that there were some questions in the survey about why we chose to include the Durham Fair as one of the strengths. And I just want to say that we chose the Durham Fair because, I mean, not because necessarily lots of people who attend are going to visit all other Durham businesses during the fair days, but really because it brings hundreds of thousands of people to Durham every year, and it gives Durham name recognition. So, you know, we just need to think about how we want to capitalize on that. So next, I want to talk a little bit about the question, what are Durham's economic weaknesses? So about 45% of respondents said the lack of utility infrastructure in commercial areas is a weakness. 35.6% said negative perceptions of the land use regulatory process. 68% said the perception of resident resistance to commercial development. And then about 26% had other responses. So common responses were the general lack of development, a lack of critical mass of businesses downtown, high taxes, the struggle with the balance between development and open space. And I think that's something that's just kind of a key theme that runs throughout all these responses. So just something to, you know, keep in mind. And the lack of a sizable grocery store, which we'll get into in another question, but just some comments that I want to make on this section. The perception of resident resistance to commercial development piece. Like I said, the survey results showed that most people do want to see some additional commercial development in Durham. And so I think it's really important that those people and that the community gets the message out that those people should, you know, come out and support certain applications that are going through the land use process, and that they're supportive of, you know, any changes, any zoning regulation changes, and you know, that they're vocal about that, and they're vocal that they do want to see some additional commercial development in town. On the general lack of development piece, just a comment on that. A lot of people cite concerns about traffic in town when it comes to, you know, being concerned about having additional commercial development in town. And just a comment on that is that as there are additional businesses locating along Main Street and in other areas in town, more people will be stopping, and that actually slows traffic a little bit. So, you know, just something to keep in mind. On the lack of critical mass of downtown businesses, I think that this is really critical to kind of build this mass up, because it draws people from outside the town to Durham. You know, they don't necessarily want to drive to Durham just to visit one shop or one restaurant in a lot of cases. But, you know, if there were multiple opportunities for them to shop and eat and, you know, see something, you know, visit an attraction, people would be from outside the town would likely be more willing to visit Durham. And, you know, it also draws in customers for the existing businesses. So it helps them out as well. And then just a couple more comments. I just want to make sure that some of you, that you're all aware of some of the actions that are currently being taken locally to address a couple of the items on this list. With respect to the lack of utility infrastructure, there is an infrastructure committee that has been created and is studying the possibility of putting public water downtown, which would certainly be attractive for businesses looking to locate there and current businesses looking to potentially expand. And then also on the negative perceptions of the land use regulatory process, I know that the town has recently hired a planner who is going to be working to, you know, revise some of the regulations, which should facilitate the experience of some businesses in Durham that are, you know, going through the land use regulatory process, either, you know, new businesses incoming or businesses looking to expand. So that's all I have on that. Let's move along.
She mentioned the grocery store.
Okay, so the next question is, would you be supportive of additional land being zoned for commercial and or industrial activity? So only 16.3% of respondents said no. Most people said that they would be supportive of land being zoned for commercial and industrial. That's 58%. And then for just industrial, 4%, and for commercial only, 21%. So clearly, you know, people are in favor of that. And then just to build off that, we asked the question, where in town would you be interested in seeing additional land zoned for commercial and or industrial use? So it's kind of a small chart there, but people who said that they would be interested in seeing additional land zoned for commercial or industrial said the Main Street Historic or Residential District, about 38%. About 2/3 said the north and south ends of Main Street. 71% said the Route 68 corridor. 72% said the existing industrial parks. And then in the other category, we had Route 17, anywhere, just maintain flexibility about it. Open space on the outskirts of town, and Route 79. So I'll just make a comment here that while obviously most people were supportive of seeing additional land zoned for commercial or industrial use, we just want to make sure that the land that's currently zoned commercial and industrial, you know, any buildings or vacant parcels that are located in those areas, that those are mostly being filled up before, you know, we really need to start thinking about doing additional zoning, because, you know, if we can't fill up what we have currently, you know, then we don't really need to start thinking about that quite yet. So. And so here is a slide on, it's the top 10 ranked when we ask the question, what type of business would you like to see in Durham? So the number one answer was grocery store by quite a bit. Then we had full service restaurant, cafe, bakery, coffee shop, boutique retail, winery, brewery, manufacturing, hardware store, agricultural business, professional office, and pub/bar. So just a couple comments on this. With respect to the hardware store, there are some, just to kind of talk about what's really going on with hardware stores right now. Small hardware stores are definitely struggling because of competition with larger stores like Home Depot and Lowe's. So not to say that it's impossible, but it definitely would be a challenge for a hardware store to succeed, in any small town really at this point, but not impossible. And with respect to professional offices, and we're going to get into this a little bit on the next slide, you should be working with your home businesses to help them succeed and grow, because these are the types of businesses that organically could fill vacant professional office spaces in Durham. As they're growing, as they're becoming more successful, they probably want to stay within the community that they've been in thus far. So definitely just keep that in mind, and we'll talk a little bit more about prioritizing working with home businesses on the next slide. So okay. So just some other business uses to consider that I added in just based on some trends that we're seeing, some related to COVID and some just kind of general thoughts for the town. So one thing that's obvious because of COVID is that there's certainly a larger number of people working remotely. And that's something that we're actually thinking about at Advanced CT right now. We're working on a marketing campaign actually to reach out to the Boston and New York markets to potentially attract people who might be looking for a change of scenery because they're no longer tied to a physical location, in office in New York or Boston. Maybe they are just looking to get out of the more densely packed cities for health reasons, or maybe it's just that they're looking for kind of a change of pace. But we feel that Connecticut is well positioned to take advantage of that. So with that said, home occupations and home workers are, again, a key sector that we want to be thinking about. Like I said, as with the home occupations, making sure that they are growing and potentially being able to move into professional office spaces. And with home workers, thinking about co-working spaces. People might just want to get out of the house and, get out of their home office and, be around other people while, either they're not allowed to go into their office or their office is a ways away, or for whatever reason, because there's way more remote workers now and likely will be into the future, a co-working space might actually work for Durham. So definitely something to think about. And you might even think about in a year or so doing a survey of residents and seeing, how many are now working from home, and asking them a year and a half ago, were you working from home as frequently? And it would be, interesting to see the change and, see if there's that demand there for a co-working space in town. Another topic related to COVID is the idea of nearshoring. So that is related to manufacturing. As we saw from this COVID crisis, there was a little bit of a breakdown in supply chains with PPE, with food production. So some companies are going to be planning to bring their manufacturing operations from overseas back to the US. And this is something that Durham can be thinking about in the appropriate industrial spaces in town. There might be some small to medium-sized manufacturers looking for new space in Connecticut and the Northeast. So just keeping that in mind, that could potentially be a good opportunity. So the next item I have here is capitalizing on the cultural and or recreational aspects of Durham's economy. So obviously Durham has an amazing downtown with so many historic homes. There's a ton of outdoor recreation, hiking, biking. There's a lot that Durham has to offer in the way of attractions for visitors. So thinking about, you know, can we do a tour of the historic homes downtown? Can we do a hiking meetup group that attracts people not just from Durham, but from the surrounding towns, and then get people to go out to the local restaurant afterwards? You know, just thinking about ways to build upon the existing strengths and what the community members love about Durham. I'm sure that people from around the region and around the Northeast even potentially would love that as well. So just thinking about how to package that and market that to those different groups. And then finally, just the last point is, in general, we just want to be building off of Durham's existing strengths. We don't want, you know, I don't think anyone wants to change the character of Durham. That's why the people that live in Durham, because, you know, it has that small town charm. And so we don't want to be changing it. And so we just want to focus on, you know, what is there, what is the strength, and how can we just build off of that to bring some more businesses in town that fit with that character. So this question was very broad and we had a lot of answers. So I've kind of just picked some quotes out that I thought were meaningful and kind of represented the thoughts of many people. The question is there anything else you'd like us to know about your opinion on economic development in Durham? And I'll just pick out a couple to read and talk about. This one I like. Local government commissions and committees don't seem to share the same vision and need to realize that one can't succeed without the other. Everyone spins their wheels, but nothing gets done. Everyone needs to work in tandem, not in a silo. Durham has so much to offer, but you can't see it through all the red tape. So, you know, while this sounds negative, I think it's something to think about, and it certainly is a path forward. I think that there just needs to be, you know, ongoing communication between all the different land use boards, between town staff, between elected officials, to make sure that everyone really is working in the same direction and make sure that everyone has that shared vision for, you know, what we want to see in terms of economic development in town. And I think that that would do a lot to, you know, cut away some of that red tape to make sure that everyone's on the same page. And then one other quote that I liked is, we spend too much effort looking for the perfect idea and not enough effort in building a culture of openness to development. So this is something that I think a lot of towns struggle with, is that, you know, people say, oh, we want to see a Whole Foods in town, and that's the only type of grocery store that we want to see in town. And, you know, it's really about what businesses want to locate in your town, and you know, you're not necessarily going to get every type of business and that you want to see. So just working to develop an openness to, you know, more broadly the types of industries that you would want to see, and, you know, the ideas for development that are shared within the community. You know, just start thinking about those and having those conversations and having open conversations. And like I said, I don't think anyone wants to change the character of the town. So just with that in mind, developing that culture of openness to development. And so for my last slide, this is just a little overview, a little sneak peek of what we are going to be including in the roadmap for economic development efforts, the implementation plan that I mentioned at the beginning. And these are just kind of the key areas that we're going to focus on. So we're going to focus on essential activities, which means like regularly doing business visitations, creating a commercial real estate inventory, creating a business list, things like that, just essential activities. Stakeholder engagement, meaning reaching out to residents, different land use boards and commissions to communicate, you know, what economic development efforts are ongoing and make sure that everyone's on board. Local programs and policies, so that's kind of more specific, you know, if the town wants to consider implementing any type of incentives for businesses coming in, or a revolving loan fund for businesses to improve their facades, or you know, something related to COVID, like Shop Local, Win Local, where you send in a couple pictures of receipts from local businesses and you get entered to win a gift card, or just any types of programs, and we'll have some specific recommendations around that. Next, promotional activities. So that's really just marketing the town, which I've touched on a bit, but thinking about how we can attract visitors potentially, how we can attract businesses, obviously, and then that ties into business recruitment. So how can we understand what the needs are of businesses looking to come to town? What does our commercial real estate availability look like? What types of commercial real estate? So just thinking through that. And like I said, we'll have lots of specific action items under each kind of category, but I just wanted to give you all kind of an idea of what we are going to be including in that plan. So with that, I think happy to take any questions, and thanks for taking the time to listen to the results of the survey.
Hello, this is Joyce Bray. I have a question on a large grocery store. What about our small little markets that we have in town? What will it do to them?
So the feedback that we've gotten is that people don't like that they are having to leave town and provide, and spend their money outside of town to get a lot of the grocery kind of essentials that they need, that they can't get at kind of the smaller local markets. So I don't think it's necessarily an issue in terms of, obviously there will be some competition, but if these markets can potentially pivot to be more specialty, like I know Lino's is, a specialty Italian food market, which, you're going to be able to get things at Lino's that you're not going to be able to get at, a Big Y or a ShopRite. So I think, clearly there's a desire to see that type of business in town. And hopefully these smaller markets can kind of pivot to, turn into that more specialty store that isn't necessarily in direct competition.
All right, Sadie, were you going to discuss this last slide in detail, or should we continue to take questions? How do you want to do this?
Which I think I finished all the slides.
The survey methodology, et cetera?
I did that one at the beginning.
Oh.
Yep.
Oh, okay. That's why it looks familiar. All right. So, so if I hit stop share, that'll bring that.
Yeah, you're all set. Yep.
Okay. So if you're ready for questions, we're ready for you to ask. I was going to wait until, everybody was settled in to say, okay, go for it. So anybody who has questions, you can raise your hand instead of just popping right in. That would be appreciated. Thank you.
Hi, Laura.
Hi, Sadie, thank you for that presentation.
Sure.
So I was pleased and a little surprised that manufacturing came in the top 10.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think that that's because of two things. One is that possibly a lot of our respondents recognize that those are the kind of businesses that generate tax revenue. And two, because they have recognized that the manufacturing companies that we have in town are pretty compatible with us. And they're not just in our industrial zones, they're on our main street, they're on our other I'll call less than main streets, not necessarily side streets, but we have some very major players in the manufacturing world right here in Durham operating pretty much under our radar. So I'm hoping that the respondents appreciated that. So that being said, how do we attract more of those?
Right.
And I know that's difficult because manufacturing has been on the decline in Connecticut, let alone Durham, Connecticut, right?
Right.
But this whole idea of reshoring, bringing the companies that we've been dealing with overseas back onto, U.S. soil, how can a small town like Durham start attracting those companies?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily, a town like Durham is actually very well suited to attracting manufacturers because they're not necessarily looking to be located in more urban environments where the cost of real estate might be higher. So, plus Durham is centrally located to, different transportation kind of access ways, major roads, which is something that's critical for manufacturers who are looking to transport their goods. So just in general, I think Durham is well positioned to attract more manufacturers. And then I think another piece of it is making sure that you know what commercial real estate is available for manufacturers and working with property owners to market those parcels. And you can work through, if they have brokers, then they should be advertising on online commercial real estate databases like LoopNet and CoStar, through Advanced CT's Site Finder online database. You could reach out to the New England Real Estate Journal, which is a great regional publication throughout the Northeast that highlights, available land. Or you could even, write an article, look at Durham, look at all the real estate we have, look at where we're located. So I think just getting out there to market the available real estate and just making sure that what you have in your inventory, that's going to be key.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Anyone else have any questions? Comments? Feedback? It'll be a really short meeting. Actually, I'd like to call upon, Joe, there you are. Who went first, Joe or Rick? I'm sorry, I didn't say it. All right, Rick, go ahead. Rick, you hear me? Okay.
Looks like he's talking, but he's not.
It's not working. Sometimes he has a little technical difficulty. All right, Joe, would you like to go while Rick figures it out?
Yep, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the EDC for continuing to engage and try to bring economic development to our community. Sadie, I guess I would like to ask maybe a couple questions.
Sure.
In the beginning of the presentation, you spoke about that the residents don't want big box stores.
Mm.
And then when we have the discussion about the grocery stores, typically the larger grocery store chains fall into the category of big box stores.
Yeah.
And as a community, does it behoove us, and it seems easy enough, to continue to utilize outreach in our community, hopefully one day face-to-face meetings with our community, but the continued use of surveys to continue to drill down deeper to get a better understanding of size and scope that our community has an appetite for. Sure. So that it allows us, I believe, to probably be more successful in engaging development in our community.
Yep. Yeah. So, I mean, I guess, yeah, obvious grocery stores are big box stores. As I was going through these results, you know, I think most people meant like a Walmart or, you know, other types of big box stores besides the grocery store. I think while they are the same, I think some people kind of viewed them separately. But yes, I very much advocate for ongoing use of surveys. It's, you know, it's really the best way to get broad feedback from the community. You know, if you just have a public meeting, not nearly as many people are going to come out. The survey is a lot easier for people to just, you know, take in 10 minutes and, you know, they're done with it. So I definitely advocate for the continued use of surveys. I would just caution against using too many because then people tend to get a little bit weary of continuing to take them. So, you know, once a year, maybe once every 6 months, I would say would be probably a good rate of surveying people. But yeah, make sure that you're kind of drilling down, like you said, to, you know, some more specific questions based on, you know, the results of this survey and not asking people, you know, similar questions and, you know, getting more detailed because I think that people do want to be involved and do want to be heard. So yes, I definitely think that the use of surveys is a good idea moving forward.
And it seems to me that when we initially held, the Planning and Zoning Commission held what they call the visioning session, and we held it in our firehouse where you got some of that data from. Mm-hmm. And then now it seems with the number of participants being 511 people took the survey, that it's obvious to me that our community wants to be engaged in the process. Mm-hmm. And I think that we should do our best as leaders in our town. I'm a member of the Planning and Zoning Commission and Agricultural Commission, that that we should be doing our best to try to engage our community. And then I think by doing that, we'll reduce, on one of the slides, it had about residents' resistance to development. I think that engagement would change that number and start driving that number downward. Right. And we'd have a higher success rate in our development.
Right. Yeah. And if you can get more residents involved, you know, starting them off with a survey, now they're starting to think about economic development and development in general. So, you know, then they might be more likely to show up to a meeting and express their opinion or get involved in another way. So, you know, it's a great starting point, and hopefully it leads to additional engagement. And the results of the survey showed that, you know, so many people said, you know, we want to be able to have better communication and, you know, better be able to share what our thoughts are. So, you know, starting that through surveys and through, you know, just talking with your neighbors and saying, you know, come out to this meeting and hear what's going on. You know, word of mouth is a great way to get people involved too. So yeah, I think there's definitely a desire for that within Durham.
Great. And again, thank you to the EDC members. Great job.
Okay, Rick, are you there? Come on down, Rick. All right. What do you have? Can you tell he's, oh, you can see him. All right, we'll give him a couple more minutes, and if not, I'll jump to Phil. I'm keeping track here.
Thank you very much. I wanted to respond to something that was underlying Joe's comments, which seemed to conflate people wanting a grocery store maybe a little bit bigger than what we have in town and quote unquote big box, because there's a whole middle ground there. And I think the Independent Grocers Association fills that very well. And for example, I work up in Rocky Hill, and they have a nice IGA that is quite a bit smaller than the big chains down on, say, Route 5 or up in Middletown, yet bigger than what we have available. So I can understand where that commentary is coming from, and I don't think we need to survey that sort of stuff to death. But I appreciate this survey, and it is good to stay in touch with the community, but I I do think we could probably keep moving ahead with some of these things. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Phil. Actually, I don't know if anybody's had a chance to read the raw data, but a lot of references were made to like a Roberts in Madison, like I guess there's an IGA in Portland. That's the kind of scale that I think our town would be comfortable with. But thank you for your comments. And let's see, Rick, are you there? Oh, poor Rick. All right, let's go to Josh. You're in.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, I guess, a few things. One, while 500 seemed like a good response rate, how do you know how representative that is of the overall community? Like, I don't know how you benchmark those things to say, you know, really I am getting a good cross section versus, you know, I answered the survey, but I'm also on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And so I'm sort of
500 people
really involved, I guess, if you will. So that's one part of my question. And then the other part of my question is around the results saying that there's a perception of, I mean, as we've touched on, right, a perception that we're anti-development, both in terms of the community and in terms of the government. And I'm sort of curious as to how you think those perceptions form and then how they're corrected.
Sure. So the first part of the question is, you know, it's difficult to say with 100% certainty that this is representative of every viewpoint in Durham. In general, we would like to do, you know, a mailing survey is a great way to kind of get additional representation, just because, you know, you can reach technically like every house that's in Durham. But we didn't have the budget for it. So we, you know, stuck with putting it out on social media, on the town's website. You know, it's really just about getting it out as much as we possibly can to try and reach the most people. You know, it's not going to be 100% perfect, but the more responses there are, you know, the better chance that we have kind of a broad perspectives. And, you know, the 511 number, based on surveys that we've done in towns of similar sizes, is a pretty solid number. So, you know, I think that we can kind of extrapolate generally the thoughts of people in Durham. But, you know, there's always room for improvement. And then to your can you just repeat your second question? Sorry.
Well, I guess it was around, you know, it seemed in a couple of areas, the perception is that both the community and the sort of boards and commissions are
Right.
somewhat anti-development. And I'm curious as to both how that sort of thing forms and how you correct it.
Sure. So I think a lot of times there will be one or two or three kind of high profile cases that will go before a land use board that will be, you know, they're kind of controversial, and, you know, half the town might be split one way and half the town might be split another way. And, you know, even residents just saying, you know, 1, 2, 3 instances of that happening, that certainly kind of sets a perspective in their mind. And kind of from the outside perspective, you know, if a developer is coming in and presenting, you know, this project and has done a lot of work and, you know, put some money into, you know, getting plans together, working with the architect, whatever it may be, and then to have that proposal shot down, that can also kind of create a negative reputation on the outside. And, you know, people in the commercial real estate industry talk, so it could potentially, you know, create kind of a ripple effect. So, you know, internally and externally, you know, some high profile cases that are controversial, you know, that don't necessarily have the result that's desired by certain groups. That's a lot of times just how those, you know, that reputation gets started. So that's to that piece. And then working to kind of combat that, I think, like I said, just getting everyone on the same page in terms of a vision for economic development is just incredibly helpful. I know there's a new town planner, so, you know, working on some of the zoning regulations to make sure that they are actually reflective of what the community wants to see. That's a big deal too. So, you know, it's not like a business is coming in and, you know, the community wants to see it, but it's not going to work because the area isn't zoned for that or whatever it may be. So, you know, I think from the zoning regulation piece is huge, and then just getting everyone on the same page, ensuring that there's constant communication between elected officials, land use boards, town staff, just to make sure that, you know, that there's that cohesive approach to economic development.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Okay, so Rick, are you there on your cell phone? Rick? I wish I can see it. Oh. He's waving? Where are you? You're waving. You got your phone. All right, you gotta unmute you. I can't tell who's you because I can't see your phone number. So let's see. Ask to unmute. I can't unmute him. Oh my goodness.
Rick is the 301.
I can't. Can you see it? Because I can't see it.
No, I agree. I don't see it. He's texting me, but
Can you give him your phone? No. Because I saw an iPhone pop up before, but when I go to unmute, all it says is to ask to unmute, and so I can't unmute it for him.
He just connected to audio, Janet, so if he unmutes now, he should be.
I bet you Rick can't wait till we can meet face to face again. Oh, I wish I could. Oh.
Hey!
Woohoo! We gotcha.
Oh, yeah, I was, you know, interesting to talk about a big grocery store. When Silver Eagle had a proposal coming before the town, we just about ran them out of here on a rail. The people showed up en masse to kill that proposal. Maybe it was too big for Durham, but it was, maybe we showed our colors there to our future. Another detriment to Durham is we're located in the state of Connecticut, and the state of Connecticut financially is in terrible shape. Businesses that have branches in other states are advised by their finance people to stay away from Connecticut because of our financial structure at the state level is such poor shape. But you know, we have a NIMBY contingent. People don't show up to support businesses. I went to a CBA meeting, and we had a rather unique business over there in the industrial park, and nobody was there to support their proposal. It was approved and they stayed, but when they were asked by one member of the commission what they were going to do if it wasn't approved, they said very, very candidly said they were going to leave. And they could, because the industrial park in Wallingford is very friendly. They have sewer, water, and gas. And, you know, next door we lost Bristol Myers, and in Middletown we lost Aetna. And, you know, they tore down those buildings just to get them off the property book. So we have to, as a community, not just say we want to have business, but support them when they come around. Even if it's just an attorney or a professional engineer or somebody that wants to open an office in their home, you know, on Main Street. We just, people aren't too supportive of business the way I see it. I mean, they say they are until somebody shows up, and then they're not that friendly. It's a tough battle. And so like a solar proposal on town property in Durham, there was a few people there that made some noise, and boy, the selectmen just walked away from that project. We got to do better locally. We lost a business that was founded here in Durham simply because they didn't have a place to go. But they may not have generated jobs particularly taxes, but they traveled extensively. Their vehicles were in New York, all over New England. They were not even out on Martha's Vineyard, I guess. So, it's important to get your name out there, and the fair does that. you know, hundreds of thousands of people come to town to go to the fair. So we have that exposure. But, you know, when they want to start a business here, oh, God help them. It's an expensive proposition between attorneys and engineers. Okay, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions? Let's see, I don't see anybody's little hands being raised. Oh, Bob Booz, would you like to speak?
Yes, please.
Thank you.
This is a question and then a comment. When we talk about economic development, are you using that synonymously with tax revenue increasing?
Not necessarily. I mean, obviously, what comes to mind for many people when we say economic development is new construction. And that's obviously a major piece of economic development. But I mean, another part of economic development is just retaining the businesses that you have and making sure that they are succeeding. And then, you know, hopefully eventually those businesses that you have will be able to expand, which then can obviously translate into tax revenue. But, you know, there are parts of economic development that aren't necessarily just, you know, new construction. So.
Well, new construction is an interesting comment, but really what we're in a property tax state, so we're looking at capital equipment manufacturing as opposed to new construction.
Yeah.
And certain things that were mentioned, home businesses, really don't generate a lot of revenue, but do generate traffic and more kids in school kind of thing. So I think the survey is very interesting. I very much like that the EDC has taken initiative on this. It's great to hear. My concern is that the unanimity about why we're doing this. What does development mean? The question about, is it about taxes or is it about amenities? I think that needs to be a very clear statement. So thank you.
All right, Laura, you're next.
So Bob, that was a really good question and comment. And, you know, my own personal opinion on it is it's both. You know, when economic developers or development professionals are trained, they are trained to say that, to learn that, you know, there are amenities that make a community attractive to people who want to live there, people who want to do business there, to attract workers to come to those businesses to work. And there's almost like a standard list of amenities that people like to have. It's groceries, it's medical, it's you know, some kind of retail, it's, you know, cars, you know, gas station. There's like this bunch of things that people want to have at their fingertips, so to speak. That being said, if you focus totally, you're right to ask the question about, well, if we're looking to grow the grand list, well, we're not going to do that simply by attracting retail shops, because those are typically not entities that generate big increases in the grand list. But my question to Sadie is, so for many years, we had some steady grand list growth, and a lot of it had to do with residential development. Durham became known as a very attractive place to live because of our properties, our open space, our beautiful vistas, and also our good school system. Is there still an opportunity for any growth from the residential sector these days?
Well, we generally are hearing, I mean, in Connecticut overall, I think the residential market is pretty good right now. However, I think kind of a trend with some smaller towns like Durham, some more rural towns, is that, you know, there has been some population loss in the past 10, 15 years. With that being said, adding some amenities to the town, potentially, you know, adding walkability downtown, or adding some of those kind of service-based businesses that people like to see in a town, of course, that can, you know, attract people, highlighting and celebrating and, you know, attracting visitors to some of the great attractions that Durham has to offer with respect to, you know, its historical assets, with respect to its outdoor recreation. You know, maybe these visitors come to Durham and they're like, wow, this is an awesome town to live in. You know, I can walk around, I can go get ice cream at the Durham Dairy Serve, and then I can walk down the street and, you know, go have a nice dinner or go on a hike. So I think just, you know, if a goal is to attract, you know, new residents, I mean, particularly, you know, younger families, if that's something that the community wants, and, you know, maybe it's not, maybe it is, but I think focusing on, you know, building up some of the amenities and, you know, trying to attract visitors is a great way to attract new residents as well.
Thank you, Sadie. Laura, are you all set?
All set. Thank you.
Thank you. Frank. You're up, Frank.
There we go.
There you are. Okay. I knew you were there.
Thank you very much. I wanted to hear the thoughts of our planning and zoning commissioners before I spoke, and I have a couple of observations. The first is I think that it's great that the EDC has undertaken the survey. While Josh makes a good point that, you know, the validity and you know, can you proof the survey? Those are very good questions. Just on the face of it, 511 would represent about 25% of the households in Durham. That's pretty good. So the other thing I'd like to say is, you know, we've had a good relationship with EDC, the Planning and Zoning Commission that I chair has, and I think that there's an opportunity, and you kind of highlight it in your presentation, that the Planning and Zoning Commission and the EDC Commission and other commissions in town that are, you know, important, representing the residents and so forth, that those are, you know, there's opportunities for us to work together, and we welcome that at Planning and Zoning. In fact, we have, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, but we are undertaking right now with the new town planner a rewrite of our zoning regulations. And so this is very timely. We're looking forward to hearing tonight's survey so that we can incorporate some of this into our items going forward, which include, you know, what's permissible in Durham, what's not permissible in Durham without a special permit, and many other things. Yeah. You did bring up wineries and breweries, and I'm very proud of the commission members. Recently, they passed the winery and brewery regulation, which permits that. And I understand that there's several people that are actually already knocking on the door looking at that. So I think that'll be good for our community. So I think that generally speaking, those are my comments. I think the survey did highlight a couple things, but generally it follows very much what we saw in the charrette that was done a few years ago at the firehouse, and that was mentioned. So it seems that the community still has the same desires. And hopefully we can get that right as we put together the new zoning regulations for the town. So thank you very much, and thank you, Janet, for chairing the commission and putting this together as well.
And I'll just add a comment to that, some towns I know you mentioned, working more closely with the EDC and other land use boards and commissions, and some towns actually, the EDC will send an ambassador to go sit at all the planning and zoning commission meetings and vice versa. And, same with the other land use boards and commissions, to make sure that there's someone there kind of representing that perspective and who can report back to that group to make sure that, everyone's aware of what's going on in all these different groups. And that there's, there's these ongoing conversations between the groups. So just a recommendation.
Sadie, it's Laura again. Is there any trend yet emerging because of COVID, because of our situation here? Are there any emerging trends of industries that are either currently and or anticipated to rise to the top in the next several years because of the pandemic? And then conversely, are there any industries that are anticipated to not survive this? And and let's just talk about grocery store, because so many people have looked for things like Peapod and Instacart and all that stuff. I can't imagine that grocery stores are still not going to be needed and wanted, but any emerging trends going yet?
Yeah, I think a lot of this is just going to be, we have to kind of wait and see until the dust settles on, what's temporary and what's more permanent. But I think in terms of industries that are I'll start with industries that are going to be challenged. I know that the airline industry is going to be challenged kind of more long-term. They're projecting, and obviously kind of food service and accommodation businesses are going to be challenged more long-term. Not to say that they can't, eventually make a comeback, but it's not going to be probably within the next 6 months that you're going to see everything back to kind of the way it is. And then I think just generally, I don't know of any specific industries yet that they're saying are going to be, thriving off of this, but I think generally any business that can pivot to a more remote business model, whether that's, I've been reading about what they call cloud kitchens, that it's like a restaurant, but they only do delivery or takeout service and there's no physical restaurant, or, shops that can also have an online presence, or really, obviously this remote aspect is not going anywhere. It's going to be growing. So I think generally businesses that can kind of pivot their business model to take that into account more will be the ones that are going to be more successful moving forward.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, Andrew.
Hey, this is Andrew Taylor and Mary Elizabeth Kaler. First, I just wanted to thank the EDC for putting this together. I think it's great that we're looking at continuing kind of economic development within our town. I did want to speak a little bit to the survey and survey methodology and what conclusions can be drawn from it. And I think, honestly, I think all boards and commissions within this town have been guilty of this in the past, and maybe this would be a recommendation moving forward. I think that there are surveys that are done to elicit both commentary and to generate ideas. And then there are surveys that are utilized to get a particular sense of what the opinion or position as of a town or, you know, a nation is this, you know, a survey that is not randomly sampled, you cannot do the latter. This is, you know, an incredibly biased sample when it comes to drawing conclusions about the population in general. But it's a great survey to generate ideas and thoughts about, you know, what potential areas to look in as far as kind of just, you know, thinking about additional things from that standpoint. So I just want to caution Planning and Zoning and the other commission that utilizes this data to be careful about what type of information and conclusions they draw from it. I did want to say, and I guess I'm going to let my wife speak about just the general kind of town businesses and kind of our experience during COVID, because I think we've maybe had a unique or different experience, and I think it's been actually fairly pleasant from that standpoint.
Yeah, so Mary Elizabeth Taylor here. I just wanted to say thank you in general to any members of the just economic group community in this town. We, starting March 13th, shut down here. And I am so appreciative of all of the businesses in town. Because of them, I have not had to enter a business for anything that we have needed anywhere else in this state since March 13th. And I'm so grateful for that, so that, you know, that we have our pharmacy, that we have the Durham Market, that we have Brenda's, that we have all of the businesses, Lyman Orchards, everything in town that we have needed for our family. So I just would like to say a huge thank you to all of them to help us stay in place.
Thank you.
All right, Frank.
Thank you. One of the things that I wanted to get back to in the survey, I noticed that there were a couple of things that were mentioned relative to agriculture and to opportunities for that and recreation. And I think there's a couple of areas in town where we need to make sure that we preserve what we have if we're going to do any kind of revisions to our regulations and so forth. For instance, we know from past experience that the center of the town, where the residential Main Street residential area is, and typically called the historic district, that area it's kind of quaint and wants to stay the way it is. And I think we need to be respectful of that. As far as the agricultural areas that we have in town and opportunities, during the POCD, it was noted that Durham is kind of a hub of a wheel, if you will, with respect to activities such as hiking, going to scenic places, bicycling, mountain biking, that kind of thing. And so we have a unique opportunity to use that ability of being a hub from an economic standpoint. If you look at some of the maps, you'll notice right off the bat that there's a number of state highways that all kind of intersect in Durham. And so it becomes not only a good place, center of the state, which is an advantage to us, but also it's a place that once someone comes, they can enjoy the amenities, they can take part in all of those activities. And I think there's some respect to quality of life and the ability of people to kind of spend a day here and go to all of these different activities. So this is just two comments I wanted to add.
And I'll just add to that. I think agritourism is a big opportunity for Durham because, you know, it encourages the, you know, maintenance of the character of the community, but again, builds on it and brings in additional economic opportunity as a result. So, you know, working with farmers to do farm tours, and for farmers that, you know, might not participate in CSAs, working on that, you know, pick your own, things like that, just finding opportunities, working with the farming community to make sure that there are agritourism opportunities, bringing in visitors, and then, you know, that residual income is spent in town supporting farms, because obviously that's a huge part of the fabric of the community, the part of the history of Durham. So just something to think about moving forward.
All right, thank you, Frank. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Going once, going twice. Courtney, did you have anything to add?
I think Sadie did an excellent job of laying out the results, so I don't want to overshadow that, but I just wanted to thank you all. It's been a pleasure so far working with you, and we look forward to continuing. So happy to take questions or elaborate or expand on any of these issues offline or as we move forward.
Thank you, Courtney. All right, anybody else? Rick, you're waving to me. He's got to unmute again. Here we go. I don't know. I think he's waving. I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, am I on now?
You are now. Yes, go for it.
Yeah, I'll get there. By the time we get used to this, I'll have some new technology out. You know, growing up here, we had a multitude of dairy farms. Durham's changed and evolved over the years. And before Route 91 was built, and to a lesser extent Route 9, we had tremendous traffic going through town, especially on weekends to access the beaches before Route 9. We even had troopers there manning the light. And we had truck traffic pounding through here, you know, around the clock going to Hartford before 91 was built. So, and Main Street, when Frank had the charrette, it was very interesting, but Main Street was never strictly residential. I mean, at the intersection of Route 68 and 17, I could go, when I was a little kid, I went to a preschool program there. And on the other side of the light, on the south side was a physician's office, and the other side of the daycare center was a little convenience store. And that was right in the heart of town. So, you know, the idea that Main Street was strictly residential, that never existed. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Okay, guys, looks like I don't see any more hands up. So I'm going to thank Sadie and Courtney for sitting in on our meeting, and thank everyone who participated. I do hope that you got something out of it. And I do look forward to working with the other commissions. I think we'll be able to create a plan going forward where we can do that. So I am going to sign off if that's all.
To adjourn. Janet, you have to make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Carol. I asked for a motion to adjourn. I just wanted to give people a chance if they had to say anything else. All right. I have asked for a motion to adjourn at 8:24.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I don't think there's anybody opposed. So everyone have a good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.